In this video we're going to look at how I'd like to see things develop in Trenched Crusade. How do you like to see the lines of war be redrawn? Who would you like to see rise and fall in power? What factions would you like to see deepen their territorial gains? That's what I thought it would be fun to discuss in this video, and let me know your thoughts and opinions down below. So, welcome back to the trenches, and let's begin. I'm going to be talking narratively in my opinion, as my feet are purely in the trench lore at the moment, rather than the model side of things. If you have things you like to see outside of that, let me know your thoughts. So, let's start off with upending a current status quo. As we come into the lore, the two members of the Court of the Seven-Headed Serpent, Beelzebub and Mammon, are those with the biggest amount of territory on the map within the named powers. The conflict is mentioned quite a few times within the lore, so once it's been fleshed out more, I'd love to see that battle brought to a conclusion. I think with Beelzebub being a main faction with the Black Grail and being more fleshed out with ideas like the Great Hunger, Mammon should be the one to fall. Knock him down and have a civil war of the avarice, sin, new factions fighting against each other to see which can claim Mammon's throne. And Mammon himself can try and rise back up. Imagine the lengths he would go to. We'll maybe see him ally with those he would not have thought to have aligned himself with before. Because he's in a desperate position, that would be interesting to see. As part of any good storytelling, what you want to do is raise the stakes at certain points in the story. And for the side of the Sultanate or the Church, I think they could be put in that position. This could be accomplished with a breach of either side's wall. Have a force of demons who manage to breach the wall and take a little of the land held by the forces of the Creator. Have them hold and fortify the land, a wall behind the wall, and have the followers of the Church or the Sultanate fight to clear the breach and stop the incursion deeper into the lands of the Church. What if the Hellmouth of the North became permanent and widened to allow more of the followers of the Court of the Seven-Headed Serpent through, putting pressure on those fighting in the North? And if they fail, other areas of this balanced war would change. In this next part, I'm going to label it the Time of the Beast. The Path of the Beast is a cult dedicated for those who follow it to give up on their humanity and accept their beastly desires. How could this arise in a way that would shift the power? Let's say the Lord of Wrath falls and that leaves a place, and as the princes fight over taking the throne, the beasts get a chance. At that same time on Earth, a load of humans become susceptible to the purr of the beast. Let's say a city or a small country become open to the path. There's one area caught between Mammon and Beelzebub, and their forces have gone back and forth, stripping the land of what little vitality was eked out already. And so all that's left for the people is death, from starvation or death by the forces of the court. All they find for nourishment is the remains of each other, those of the past, sometimes those that are living, and the only comfort they can find is temporarily within each other's arms. Even the animals and rats have been stripped bare, so with no hope of salvation, they feel that itch to give in to their primal urges, to embrace all that remains to them, and embrace the path of the beast. And so these people do embrace it, and the beast takes over a large area, and so they run wild into the areas around them, moving in packs, giving into their base desires, and making others do the same or suffer the fate of the ending of their lives. And a small army is made, and takes the land into its claws. The beast who makes no claim to a nation has founded a small state, so they become a power. And in a similar way, how could the Church of Metamorphosis spread its gospel further? We are told in the law that the knowledge they gather is broken down to its tiniest pieces, and this orchestrates the war, and it prepares the world for the day when the doorway opens and apotheosis comes blasting forth to illuminate in its absolute absence of sense. So I propose that the doorway mentioned in the short story, linking back to the doorway in hell, becomes one of several. The doorway that's brought across to Earth, by the way, is just one place where their church is. I propose that this is one of several, that they harmonise and they find each other, and that this widens the doorway in hell, and their influence becomes stronger. They become more of a force. Now the law says they serve as information gatherers, and that fits into their plans to widen the doorways. What forms could that take, and how would they operate as a force outside of that, spreading their worship of the portal and its transformation? They might use this information to help themselves, find helpful broadcast locations, how to defeat certain enemies that might stand in their way. Let's say it covers a state-size area, and then they spread out the portable portals, and they're linked together and harmonise as I mentioned, and back in the doorway in hell, hearing hearing that call, it widens, and those that follow the church get stronger. Perhaps some aid is sent through to them, some sort of Lovecraftian beasts, stronger warped versions of the leaders of the church, who can bestow additional blessings, direct priestly extensions of their chaotic thing behind the door. Perhaps they're always evolving and changing, even as you look at them, and this gives them a base of power from which to extend their gospel. Another faction I'd like to see grow in power is the Sinnard of Strategic Prophecy. They listen out for the voice of God. Some study the enemies of the church, their bodies, to understand who they fight more, and their observers wear the Oculus helmet so they can attune to the voice of God and use that knowledge in combat. Perhaps they could rise in power in two ways. A leader, a prince amongst the church, who allies and speaks of their importance to the battle against hell, and some sort of failure or fall within another area of the church, so the Synod can gain more ground. Maybe they find a place where they better get reception for the voice of God, and their powers increase. The observers can hear clearer, and take on more enemies, maybe learn their plans and offer strategic advice that the prince could follow, and perhaps those who study the bodies of the enemy could find some biological way to better fight the demons, some weakness or knowledge that helps them fight in the skirmishes in no man's land. Maybe they are told by God how to build things that aid his creation. Off the top of my head, an observer who has angel eyes in their flesh and acts as a strategist, ensuring the forces of the Synod fight better coordinated. And of course, being that sort of target, they would have some mean-looking guards, watchers you could say, who guard them. Now in this last section, and having done some more recent videos on them, I'd like to discuss the followers of the left-handed path. I think they'll need some sort of leader to bind them together, several groups of them, so the many tribes in the wilds of hell prepare for war. Perhaps one of the things of legend they profane themselves before awakens and takes a more direct hand, and they come to earth to hunt like they do with the court, but for their own interests, to claim land in which they can hunt and grow their power, setting up vile places where trophies can be hung, dedicated to the things from the mists of time they follow, to act as makeshift cathedrals to grow their power, so the dark things from legend can rise back out of the past and emerge into the time of the Creator. Those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think to see within Trench Crusade, factions you'd like to see, maybe things you'd like to see delivered on that were promised in the initial Kickstarter. I think you would also like this one if you enjoy this video on Trench Crusade. And if a metric ton of videos are your thing, then I have a playlist on the channel that also covers Trench Crusade. I also cover 40k, at least usually one video a week, that shares a lot of real world DNA with the Trench Crusade lore. There are two playlists for 40k on the channel, one dedicated to the Dark Age of technology, and the other has everything else on it. So let me know what you think to the lore in general, my suggestions, your own thoughts, and let's talk over ideas.